The PC gave us computing power at home, the internet connected us, and mobile let us do it pretty much anywhere. Now generative AI lets us communicate with technology in our own language using our own senses. But figuring it all out when you're living through it is a totally different story. Welcome to Leading the Shift, a new podcast from Microsoft Azure. I'm your host, Susan Ettlinger. In each episode, leaders will share what they're learning to help you navigate all this change with confidence. Please join us. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts podcast with the Rotoscopers, episode 33, The Adventures of Tintin. Relax, I interviewed a pilot once.
Welcome to the Animation Addicts podcast with the Rotoscopers. Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, Don Bluth, and everything in between. My name is Chelsea Robson.
And I'm Morgan Stradling.
Welcome. We're so excited. Today we are going to be talking about the Adventures of Tintin. But first, let's get some news.
So there has been lots of animation news, more so than I guess I was aware of, because we recently signed on a handful of new writers, which have been adding news stories to the site like crazy. So it seems like every day we have about 4 or 5 articles that go up, and they're on different things such as, you know, there's a lot of Disney stuff, there's a lot of Pixar stuff, and then all the other studios are covered pretty heavily. So it's been really fun, because I finally feel like, oh, we're complete. You know, we can provide really high quality stuff to the fans instead of just like when I was in charge of the news and then I was busy with school. It'd just be like one article maybe every week, 2 weeks, and I felt really guilty and I felt really bad, and so
we're letting our fans down. Oh.
No, we're not. Well, we were, but now we're back. Now we're back. So, you know, we have the podcast, we have the YouTube channel, and now we have like full-on news, and, you know, we still have the reviews that we do, written and YouTube, so lots of good things happening. So if you haven't checked out our news site, or maybe you did and you were like, this is lame, maybe check it out again, because things have gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
A lot better. Trust me. And we have some really high quality writers, so thanks to all of them. What I really want to do, maybe in the next few episodes, is just do like 5 to 10 minute interviews with each one of them, or maybe bring them on as a guest host sometime, you know, so we can get to know each one of them in a little bit different way, because it'd be really fun, because they're really awesome, and I want to showcase them as much as possible, because they are now official Rotoscopers.
Exactly. These guys are amazing. I am in awe every day because there's so many different articles that are posted every single day, and each one of them just goes nuts, and they're really good.
We also have been having our first guest post from William Jardine. He runs A113animation.com. It's his own animation news site, and he is a very, very talented writer and has wonderful opinions. Like, I really trust everything that he says whenever he writes it. He actually did a guest post, and I'm going to do a guest post on his site, so go check that out. The post was essentially called "Why Animation is Wrongly Discarded as Children's Entertainment." So, I mean, that's a really hot button that, you know, animation's for kids, but it's not. So, really great article, and actually, he is going to be on our next episode. I know I'm already jumping in the next episode, we haven't even done this one, but he's going to be guest hosting with us while we're talking about his favorite movie, and many, many other people's favorite movie, Toy Story 2.
Yahoo!
So yeah, we get to do... Is this our first sequel that we've done?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm jumping the gun. I'm talking about it, but so get ready. Like, if you want to get to know, like, okay, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Like, check out that post, and then check out his website, so get ready for the next one. Okay, we have, like, a plethora of news right now. Like, so many news stories are happening. So one of the things that we wanted to announce is that we have partnered with animatedviews.com. So this is another animation news site, but if you think we have a lot of news, they have a ton of news. They have tons of writers, and they probably do 10 to 15 stories a day. I don't even know. But they kind of specialize in doing one paragraph news stories. So they tell you what it is, no commentary, no fluff, and then they give you the link to read more. So, I mean, it's really nice if you just kind of want to browse, like, okay, this happened, instead of, on our site, we have a lot more, all right, here are my opinions on it, and here I'm going to dissect this and analyze this and give you more backstory. So, really great site. So, we have partnered with them, and then our podcast can now be found on their website and the YouTube channel they're promoting too. So, good little partnership there. I like it. Now we're like official in the animated world, right?
Yay! The next set of news is it actually goes back to Frozen, which is a really highly anticipated movie that'll be coming out soon.
We love Frozen.
We do.
We don't even know. Okay, have you noticed a trend, Chelsea? Like, whenever we get something, like, unique and special, we latch on to that. It was like, ooh, Wreck-It Ralph test screening. We love Wreck-It Ralph.
Wreck-It Ralph is awesome.
We have leaked Frozen concept art. We love Frozen. So, but tell the news.
Yeah, so this is really cool because the leading ladies of Frozen, which are going to be Elsa and Anna, they are now set to be part of the Disney Princess collection and the Disney Princess total official lineup. So that is pretty impressive. So obviously they are banking on this film as well.
Well, yeah, and they're going to be joining the ranks of Mulan, which some people are like, oh, Mulan, she's a second-tier princess, but Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Jasmine, all the big ones, Tangled, did I?
You just did.
I fell in that trap. No, Rapunzel. Oh my gosh, I need to repent because that is like a Disney no-no. Mason calls it joining the Princess Pantheon. But you know what I don't really like about this, or I don't know how I feel about it, is they're kind of giving away that Elsa's not going to be that bad in the end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's supposed to be, I don't know, we haven't really gotten anything. Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, I guess they wouldn't have, like, the wicked sister who ends up being, killed at the end being an official princess. I mean, and let's be honest, I can't imagine this story ever ending up like the two sisters are forever split and their bitter hatred at the end of the movie, I imagine that there's going to be some reconciliation and they're going to grow to love each other and, be sisters again, which they never were not sisters, but yes.
So on to our next bit of news is actually going to be about, our favorite movies, the Cars series.
Oh, Cars.
Actually, they just had a Disney shareholders meeting where they talked about a lot of different things.
So in the Disney shareholder meeting, they essentially talked about the future for, I guess, the animated characters, the animated films. So they talked about Oswald, which they obtained in 2006. They've done the Epic Mickey series with him. And so someone asked, like, hey, what else are you going to do with Oswald? I mean, this was the famous pre-Mickey, bunny that Walt Disney created with Ub Iwerks. And unfortunately, they didn't own the rights to it. I think Paramount or one of those big studios owned the rights. And so, they essentially like pulled the rug from underneath them, back in the 20s and said, hey, sorry, this is our character. And it essentially made Walt say that he will never not own his characters again.
Yeah.
So they finally, in 2006, got the rights to this character back, and everyone's excited because Oswald's so cute. And someone asked, hey, you're going to be doing a movie? And they're like, nah, no.
We just don't want anybody else to do a movie of it.
Exactly. So they also talked about like the future of 2D animation in this. And, we'd heard rumors that maybe they were working on something. And especially with Paperman, people thought, Paperman's the next new wave of 2D animation. It's the launch pad for something bigger and greater. And they were like, no, nothing's in development. Like, Disney, what is wrong right now? So that was kind of disappointing because we'd heard rumors that they were working on things. They were,
Or that secret project that...
Yes.
that is always talked about with John and Ron.
Yeah. So that was a bit disappointing. And then Cars 3.
Yeah.
You want to talk about this?
Okay. So while at this shareholders meeting, they had a moment where an 8-year-old boy came up and said, do you guys make movies for kids or for critics? And of course, they're going to say, for kids, of course. Of course we do. And then he said, well, my favorite movie is actually Cars 2, and I would love to see more of the cars. And so everyone said, oh, then we must do it, I guess. They didn't say that. But, it kind of leads you to believe that that's on the docket at some point in time. They're going to continue this franchise of the Cars series. And also they just put in a heck of a lot of money into Cars Land. So why not continue this fun with Mater? Awesome.
I personally think that this is a conspiracy. That this kid was planted. I mean, what 8-year-old kid says, do you make movies for critics or for kids?
It's
like,
true.
come on. You're not thinking about that at 8. So I think, Bob Iger, someone in charge, they planted the kid, just like a magician, how they plant, the girl in the audience to be the volunteer. This is what it was. So that way they could kind of roundabout say, oh yeah, in case you see lots of sequels in the future, it's because we're making them for the kids who want these.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's the kids that end up buying them, just saying, ooh, gimme.
Through the parents.
Right.
But by begging.
Yeah. So, well, that's what we have to look forward to.
And until then, just check out the news site.
So today, because we are going into the movie The Adventures of Tintin, I was never really familiar with Tintin.
Because we're American.
Yeah, exactly, because we don't know what this is. But Tintin has actually been world famous for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, first, let's start off a little bit of the background. It was originally created by a man named Georges, or Herge, is what they would, I guess, call him, Remy. And he's from Belgium. He actually worked himself as a reporter while he was working at this paper in Belgium. He decided, well, I'm going to, create my own little cartoon thing. And it actually got put into this paper, and it did amazing things for this little newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
It made it grow 600% for this one day that it was going to be out there. So I'm sure they were like, woohoo! Awesome. But it really did. It took hold. And what he was able to do is he put Tintin, who's just a young boy who is off to solve mysteries and be an adventurer and do all these things, but he actually put him into modern day scenarios of that time. Mm-hmm. So, for example, this was in the 1920s and 30s, and so it was like right after World War I, and it was right around the Depression time for the United States, and for them it was heading right into World War II. The very first comic book that was made was called Tintin and the Land of the Soviets. So he puts him into a lot of different scenarios politically. Mm-hmm. And so that was one reason why when Germany came in and took over Belgium, he kind of went into hiding. The newspaper that he began in actually went out of business, and so he ended up finding a new job somewhere else, but had to put Tintin into more of an adventurer role as opposed to a reporter role. So that's kind of like the basis of where Tintin started.
Uh-huh. Over the years, this became a worldwide phenomenon, I guess. There were comic books and, I guess, cartoons that were made. And, the author was never really too happy with the cartoons and maybe the live-action remakes. But, yeah, so I, being, I guess, American, that's the only thing that I can, pen this to. Because I feel that growing up, I was very familiar with cartoons. Oh, yeah. Even ones, from before my generation. But out of the world, I'm not too familiar with, Bollywood cartoons or, different things from different cultures. So, yeah, I think it was really cool because as we're going to talk about when we get into the actual movie, The Adventures of Tintin, I really liked it. And I felt like I've been missing out. After watching this, I was like, I want to read these books. Uh-huh. I want to find out more about this guy because he seems really cool.
Yeah, I actually went into Netflix. They've got a bunch of the cartoons on there. Yeah.
Oh.
So I decided to watch the first season of it, and I didn't get through all of them, but most of them, the first 5 or 6 episodes I got through, and I was like, this is actually a pretty cool little cartoon here. I was excited about it.
So what was different about the cartoon?
It was actually, The Adventures of Tintin is actually the first 3 or 4 episodes of the cartoon in one. So if you watch this movie, you go in and watch those cartoons, and it's all kind of just spread out over 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. The first season is kind of the first bit of it, because you know how in cartoons they take the first half of the show to tell you what happened last week.
Yeah.
So we only have to actually put out 5 minutes of real footage. But no, it was a good show. I really liked it, and they had a lot of really cool little bits in there that were really funny.
That's awesome. So, let's talk about Tintin himself, because we will talk about him, I guess, more when we talk about the movie. But so he's this little redheaded kid, but he's not a kid.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a young adult. Like, I was looking online, and, like, his age is never really announced, but, you know, he has a gun, and he goes into pubs, and he drinks beer, so he's obviously a young adult. Although, in the movie, like, I felt it was a bit ambiguous about, like, how old he actually was, because sometimes I was like, he looks like he's, like, 16.
Yeah.
Like, not quite there yet, and it's because he's shorter, and he definitely has, like, that baby face and, you know, cute little spiky hair. But apparently, but then you think about what he does and his job. He's a reporter. He lives by himself. I mean, it's not like he's an orphan.
Right.
He seems, like, very established and okay. But, like, I'm adult. I'm living by myself. I have this job, and I'm an adventurer. So I just thought it was kind of funny because I was kind of like, how old is this kid? Like,
Yeah. No, Herge, I guess, George's, or, you know, the author.
excuse us for
don't know.
however we're saying this
Like,
wong. Like,
I need
no
to learn
emails,
French.
please.
I need to learn French, that's it.
Hey, good excuse.
Exactly, just so I can understand Tintin. Woohoo!
So you would have said Herge. I would have said, like, Hergé.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I don't speak French. That's just my own.
Herge. I don't know. But he never actually confirmed Tintin's age. And the comic books actually portray him as a young adult, you know, cultured, worldly, and utterly responsible.
Oh, very responsible, yes.
And the official website actually states that his age is in between 16 and 18.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
But he uses a floating timeline in the Adventures of Tintin. So the world ages around him, but Tintin never actually does.
No, yeah.
So, like, he'll always just be...
The Simpsons.
Exactly.
Bart will always be 8.
10.
10?
Lisa's 8.
Oh, don't. That's awesome.
But yeah, he's well-educated, intelligent, and, like, very selfless, with, like, total morals, like, just...
Oh, yeah.
An upstanding young youth, and just like, oh, you...
No, he's definitely someone you look up to. Like, when I was
Yeah.
watching it, like, really, like, my only basis as I'm discussing this is what from the movie. So, I mean, I don't have the comics, or unlike you who have seen the cartoon. But as I was watching, I'm like, this guy's responsible. You know,
Yeah.
like, I would trust this guy with, you know, watching my dog or my house or maybe some money. I don't know.
Right.
But it seems like to be a very good role model for young boys and young kids because he was responsible and he was honest and he was cheery and people liked him and he was smart and intelligent. And hey, you know, he could handle a gun pretty well too.
Exactly. While going through and doing some research on all of this stuff, I actually went to the...
According to my research.
According to my research.
Mason.
Awesome. I know.
Mason's not here in case you didn't notice, and so that's where he would pipe in with that line.
Right. But according to my research from Tintin Wiki, they actually say on there that he is efficient and responsible and does not smoke and rarely drinks and is very athletic. He is seen doing yoga various times throughout the series.
Nice.
And does stretches and warm-ups. And the skilled driver in almost any vehicle, including tanks, motorcycles, cars, helicopters, and speedboats.
Nice.
And I'm thinking, what do they teach these kids in Belgium?
Very handy skills.
Yeah,
What?
like definitely did not go to public school. That's all I can say.
That's like in the movie. He's flying the plane. It's like, where'd you? It's like, oh, I did a report on a pilot once.
Yeah, don't worry. I interviewed a pilot one time. Like, what? Oh, it's awesome. One other really cool thing is Snowy. His original French name was Milieu. I think that's how you say it. It's a contraction of the names Marie Louise, and so Milieu, I guess. But it was actually Herge. It was his first girlfriend's name.
Oh.
And so he actually just put it as the dog, who happens to be a guy.
Ooh.
Not a good thing. Dis. Ouch. I'm just going to say that he wasn't much of a fan of her.
So that is our little tidbit, I guess, about Tintin. So you were kind of, in case you weren't familiar with Tintin, you were learning about Tintin as we learned about Tintin. So we were sharing our knowledge. It was like show and tell just right now. So just going back to Tintin, if you're interested in learning more, just kind of like I was, you can definitely go to the Wikipedia page or the Tintin Wikia. And then there's also books that you can read. Like, I legitimately am going to download some of these books or like rent them or check them out from the library because I want to find out what happens next because these were cool stories.
Yeah, I'm sure you can get them. I'm sure you can get them on Amazon.
Oh, positively. only the best.
Obviously.
So, we're going to talk more about the different books, but they're a grand collection of books. It said that there's been over 200 million copies sold as of 2003, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That is a nice little chunk of change right there. They've been published in about 50 different languages. And so check out Tintin and learn more. If you are a Tintin expert or you kind of have your own little information you want to share with us about this, send us an email and let us know, and we'll play it on the next thing.
Years ago, secure the cargo. A power that could have changed the course of history was lost. Generations have searched for it.
Snowy, look at this. It was long claimed the ship was carrying a secret cargo.
But no one has found a clue. Until now.
The model ship conceals a clue to one of the greatest secrets in all history.
I'm warning you. Get out while you still can. These people do not play nice.
I will find that ship, with or without your help.
Thanks. I'm Tintin, by the way.
Haddock. Archibald Haddock. Someone's opened the door.
The keys, Snowy. The sandwich. The keys.
How could you let them escape?
If Sakharine finds the ship before we do, it's over.
This isn't just a ship. He wants vengeance.
Tintin.
Look.
This may sound crazy, but I've got a plan.
Excellent.
Did you hit anything?
Oh, dear.
Run! We're not there yet! No!
You looked a little cold, so I lit a wee fire.
In a boat? Well, this is a fine mess.
Pilot Tintin!
So The Adventures of Tintin was actually released December 21st, 2011 in the United States.
Yes.
And
A little over a year ago.
Yeah. I actually had just gotten back from Brazil.
I saw Tintin with my family, and I was very, very impressed. So we'll talk about that. But,
Yeah.
I mean, even in our very first episode, I think we talked about the best and worst of 2011, and Tintin was my favorite of the
Really?
year. Yes, it was.
Oh. This film is officially called The Adventures of Tintin, The Secret of the Unicorn, which is directed by Steven Spielberg and was produced by Peter Jackson, who also did The Lord of the Rings. And it is based on the 3 comic books by the Belgian writer, as we talked about before, Herge. I don't crap.
This is awesome.
Remy. We'll just stick with that one. But the 3 ones are called The Crab with the Golden Claws, The Secret of the Unicorn, and Red Rackham's Treasure.
Ooh.
And if you go on Netflix, you can also watch those cartoons as well, and they're really interesting.
Cool. So, something interesting about this is that it was, like Chelsea said, it was directed by Steven Spielberg, and he kind of became introduced to Tintin while he was filming the Raiders of the Lost Ark series. During, the first one, he, came in contact with this and was like, wow, this is fantastic. And he kind of saw it as an Indiana Jones for kids. Mm-hmm. And when I read that line, I was like, oh, totally.
Totally him.
Definitely. So, I mean, he definitely was right on par with the feeling of Tintin, or at least the version that he wanted. And so he went and he contacted the family, and Herge, he was very excited. And
like an Hermes scarf.
Herge. Oh. Herge was very optimistic because, like we said, he wasn't really happy with the cartoons or the other live-action remakes, but he had faith in Spielberg's vision of this movie, and so gave him rights. things got pushed, and Spielberg was involved with other things, and eventually he did the third of the series. And by that point, Herge had died, and so he was given permission from the family. Even then, he still wasn't able to continue with this, and so the rights went back to the family, and other studios tried to pick it up, but they never released the rights because they just weren't. They didn't see that it was going to be as faithful to the source material. Like, even some of the studios were like, no, we're like straight up not going to be faithful to the source material.
Right.
So that was not cool for the family. And so no one ever got the rights until I think around 2001, Spielberg kind of picked it up again and wanted to make it a film. And he was interested in doing it with computer animation. And, along the way, he kind of talked with Peter Jackson, and Peter Jackson even suggested that, you should do this as a motion capture film. Like, he was like, hey, I use motion capture in Lord of the Rings and King Kong, and it was great. And so Jackson even said, like, I don't think, a live action version will do this justice. Like, you need to do motion capture. And so it just kind of went forth from there. And,
That's true.
They decided what?
That's a true statement. Like, live action wouldn't have done it justice.
There's just a lot going on in this movie that it's a bit fantastical yet real.
Yeah.
So I think they picked a good medium by making it the motion caption, which we'll talk about, which was a really interesting choice because sometimes you just don't go there. And I think people are afraid to go with motion capture because of not atrocities, but just like the uncanny valley that happens, Polar Express, Beowulf. It's a bit unsettling, and you can't sit there and watch it for an hour and a half without thinking, this is weird.
Yeah.
So anyways, they ended up doing it, and it was released, like Chelsea said, in 2011, just right around Christmas time.
The budget was an estimated $130 million to produce. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
But at the box office worldwide, it was an estimated $373 million.
Mm-hmm. So, made quite a bit of chump change, right?
Yeah,
It made actually a lot more money internationally, which is pretty standard.
Yeah.
But a lot, significantly more internationally, where the character was more well-known and familiar and beloved, but still did reasonably well here in the United States. It grossed $77 million, which is decent.
Yeah.
So, very cool. So we're kind of talking about this movie is like the very, very first thing that stands out to me from the very first frame is this cartoony photorealism.
Yeah.
Because they kind of switch off. They use motion capture for all of the actors' movements, everyone except for Snowy. And they did that to create this kind of like real lifelike feel. But at the same time, certain characters are very cartoony and kind of characterized, which is interesting because they have these big noses and kind of weird facial features and dimensions, but at the same time, then you have Tintin, who is very real. To me, I don't think there is any caricature to him at all. Like, no. During that very first scene where he's in the sun and he's getting his portrait taken, you could be tricked into thinking that this is a real guy.
Yeah.
And that is fantastic to me. Like, there was no, like, oh, he looks strange. Like, there's something off. Like, to me, with Tintin, I may be in the minority, but there wasn't anything off with the motion capture used in this film.
No, and I think that was one of the main reasons what they did is some of the influences. First off, they said they did that. They changed a lot of the faces, and so the bodies were all motion captured, but the faces they did added more of a cartoonish look so that in motion capture it wouldn't go into that uncanny valley.
Nice.
So it's like just they added just enough to balance it out to make you not really think that it's a real person standing there. Like you're still looking at a cartoon or its own person and not just somebody's own little quirks and like, what is this?
Yeah.
But what was really funny, you mentioned the noses. In the cartoon itself, it said that the influences, Herge also admitted that he stole a lot of his imaging and the round noses from a guy named George McManus. And he said, they were so much fun that I used them without scruples. I thought that was awesome.
So let's start at the beginning of the film. So the movie starts out in Belgium, and we are introduced to Tintin. And, there's that cute little thing where, oh, here is your portrait, sir, and he looks, he's like, oh, it's a great likeness, and the portrait is actually the actual cartoon version of Tintin from the originals. And then you see all these other characters in the background, and it's just really funny because the movie is so photoreal, and then you have these like 2D flat, very simple graphics, which are hilarious.
But that one, the guy who's actually drawing the picture is actually a caricature of Herge.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I was like, awesome, nice touch.
That's very cool. Well, that makes sense. I mean, he is the creator, right? So we're introduced to Tintin, and he's walking around, and we see his cute dog, Snowy, which I want a Snowy, okay? That dog is brilliant.
Yeah, he was. And he, thinks.
Yes, he thinks, huh? Most dogs do not.
Well, no, in everything that you see, in the cartoons and everything, it's he has his own personality, and he's, a very dry sense of humor. It's kind of funny.
So, then we have Tintin, he stumbles upon this ship, and he seems to be very intrigued with this model ship, and he wants it. And so he goes and he offers the guy £1, which I don't know how much that equates to today, but it seemed very little for this thing, but it must have been a pretty significant amount. But the guy's like, yeah, sure, no counter offer.
Or $50.
Yeah. And then right after, this guy comes like, hey man, how much you want for the boat, kid? And, the guy's like, oh, I get a buyer 2 seconds after I sell it.
I'll double it, whatever you paid. Oh.
And of course Tintin, he knows the history of this ship and the boat, and he's very intrigued and he wants it, and so he declines the guy, and then another man appears, which I don't know if we learn what his name is, but he says, name your price, and then the old guy, oh, name your price.
I've been selling these things for 10 years, and it was 2 seconds away from getting a name your price.
I felt bad. That was a really funny moment. I felt bad for that little guy, but it had a pretty good comic relief right there. And so, we create this instant tension where suddenly this ship is very desirable, and instantly there's this mystery that gets put in. Right from the beginning of the movie, this is what all it's about. He's not like a detective, but he kind of is. He's a reporter, but he's involved in sort of these adventures and super sleuthing and figuring things out. And so right away, there's this thing that goes off in your head, and you're like, well, why do people want that? What is so interesting about this boat? And so we're swept off to this big adventure. During this part, we're also introduced to the side story of the pickpocket.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I kind of was thinking, oh, maybe it will play back into the very end of the movie and we'll see this all tie together. And it really gets resolved in the middle as a way to kind of, we'll talk about. But so we're introduced to this pickpocket guy. And
that was its own part in one of the cartoons.
Oh,
too.
really?
Yeah, so that's kind of why they put it in there. I was wondering about that. I was like, what's the deal with this pickpocket guy? He's cute and all, but what is this? But it is part of the books. Yeah, I loved meeting Tintin. He just looks so cute.
He's very put together.
Yeah.
And he's a gentleman, and he's very sweet and charming, and, oh, that's Tintin. Everybody knows Tintin. So, and I really thought that the casting of this was perfect. I don't know what Tintin sounded like in the cartoons, but having not seen it, Jamie Bell had a very youthful, commanding voice. I felt, okay, this guy, I understand that he's very young, but he's very large and in charge in his own world, and confident and secure. And I liked that because, I don't know, it was very, sweet sounding to the ears. I just liked listening to Tintin. He did sound a bit like Daniel Radcliffe to me. Huh. There were certain parts where I was like, Harry? But of course it wasn't. But
of course not. In the cartoon, sorry. I'm just always going to be going back and forth.
This will be a random tangent-filled episode.
But in the cartoon, I think the guy who plays Tintin is from Canada.
Oh, nice.
Because everything he says, sorry, is the only thing you can tell. But that's how he says it. I'm like, that sounds Canadian. But yeah.
So then, what happens is Tintin, he breaks the model ship. This cat comes in and kind of ruins everything, and then a little thing falls out, a little cylinder, and it falls down, and Snowy sees it. Snowy's very observant. He's trying to paw at it, and it scoots back to the back of the dresser on the floor, and then Tintin decides, let's do some research, and goes to the library, comes, discovers a little more about the history of the ship, and that there was buried treasure, that there was treasure on it. No, they don't know that there's treasure on it, huh?
Yeah, it did say.
It's a secret?
It says that it was rumored to have more than just
and he comes back, and it's it's stolen, which is sad. Then you're like, man, this is money. Like, something is up with this. But
the
then
whole house ransacked.
Yes, we know as viewers that it really wasn't the ship. Like, we kind of already familiar, like, no, it's the secret thing that's inside the mast.
Yeah.
Like, Tintin, you already have it, just, like, listen to Snowy. And so he goes and he essentially breaks into the Haddock Manor, like the old mansion of the Haddocks, which are this old famous sea family, which was kind of cool and interesting. I'm like, man, that guy's gutsy.
Yeah. Well, once again, what do they teach you in those schools? One really funny bit that they did was right when they're being introduced to the pickpocket as well. And they go in and you see the lady who comes out of the pet store and she like falls and then there's like these real canaries flying around her head. Yes. That's actually one of the bits from the comic book as well.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, that is awesome. But even before I knew that, I was like, that is hilarious.
It was funny. And then what I liked is like the background character. He just like, the pet shop owner just like comes out with a
like,
net.
He's like, and he's just find him.
And it just catches him, like, no big deal. I mean, if I were a bird and I finally had freedom, I'd be flying away.
Freedom! Horrible, horrible freedom!
Crazy thing, really from the beginning, they set the tone that this is a fast-paced kind of thriller and adventure story because they don't really give you much time to absorb what's going on. Like, right as something's introduced, Tintin says, well, something more must be with this ship. Like, what's the secret that holds? And he kind of works real time with us. It just moves so quickly that we don't really have a chance to sit back and relax and figure out what's going on and try to think a little bit more. Like, it just bam, 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 which is interesting, and I actually really like it.
I liked it, too.
So, Tintin's kidnapped and put into a box and then put on this big ship. He's being very, smart and ingenious and figures out how to get out very quickly. He's like, meh.
Done this before. Did this in episode 5. And then we also get introduced to Captain Haddock here. And, oh dear.
Oh, this poor guy. What a pathetic...
Oh, man.
Excuse for a man, at least early on.
Yeah.
He just has a very sad problem with drinking.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just gone too far at this point where he's not even functional.
Yeah.
So, I mean, later on, someone gives him a glass of water, and he's like, what is this beverage? And they're like, it's water, sir. So, I mean, that kind of shows the extent of this guy's drinking problem, is that, like, he's not even drinking basic fluids anymore. It's all alcohol.
He doesn't even need food.
No.
Like, when he goes to get his own essentials, it's just a bottle of rum.
Yes. I think him and Captain Jack Sparrow might have come from the same bloodline.
The rum gone? Right. He was actually played by Andy Serkis, who actually also plays Gollum from Lord of the Rings, and he essentially helped invent motion capture animation. So he was really good, and every time he's on screen, you just kind of watch him, and he's really good at his facial expressions. He's really good at just like making you want to watch him in this. So I was very impressed with that.
Who did they originally want for the role?
Originally, they wanted Jack Nicholson.
Like
when they originally thought about this in the 80s, he wanted this to be Jack Nicholson. I was like, meh, I like it better this way.
Yeah, I liked Andy Serkis because it was just, I mean, he's really talented in what he does, and so it's nice to see him kind of get his role. I'm sure the fact that Peter Jackson was involved, had nothing to do with it.
Obviously not. I loved when Haddock is talking about his crew, and he's like going in and like trying to get the keys, and he's going through, and he's like, "Watch out for him. He's a restless sleeper on account of the tragic loss of his eyelids."
Oh, ouch.
He's like, "Oh, it was a card game to remember. You had to be there." And it's like, are you sure this is really what we should be doing? He's like, nothing to worry about, provided that they all stay asleep. Oh, but stay clear of Mr. Gibbs. He was sacked as a shepherd on account of his animal husbandry. I was like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious.
Okay, those guys have got to be like the worst. I don't know, maybe they're all tuckered out from their long day at sea, but they're like falling on top of each other, like they're being slammed into it. Eventually they all pile onto the ground, sound asleep, like no worries.
They're just used to sleeping like this. And at this point, we're brought back to the pickpocket part. And I loved the pickpocket. It was hilarious. So he gets this part when you walk in and you've got Thompson and Thompson.
Yes.
Thompson and Thompson.
Yes.
There you go. And they're like, oh, good grief. That's a lot of wallets. It's like, well, I started out from coin purses and then it went from there. I'm not a bad person. I'm a kleptomaniac. What's that? fear of open spaces. Oh, poor man. No wonder he keeps his wallets in the living room. Oh, and this one I actually picked from a pickpocket who was pickpocketing at the time.
It's classic. Like, this guy, it's funny because he's knows he's been caught red-handed, or at least he thinks he has, and he's ready to, you know, it's kind of like certain criminals kind of want to be caught. Like, they want to have someone put an end to their problem. And these guys are so oblivious. They're just like, oh, better watch out. You know, there's a pickpocket loose.
Right.
It's like, duh, I am. So the whole reason is, we didn't really talk about this, but inside that cylinder, Tintin had found this piece of kind of scroll. And it had a clue on it about, you know, the secret of the unicorn and what could happen. And so this really was the thing that Sakharine, who was played by Daniel Craig, we discover very quickly is a villainous type character. This is what he is looking for, was this piece of parchment. And that's the reason why they kidnapped Tintin, because supposedly Tintin had this, and then they, you know, check his whole body and discover it's not on him, which is really frustrating. So the pickpocket was actually kind of a clever way to get that out, out of his presence, and then it's returned back to him by these men at a later point. So I liked that, and it was clever, and it was fun. And then, you know, this is the end of the pickpocket, so, you know.
Yeah, but he was a great character for the time he was in there.
It was true. You know, there's lots of craziness, there's lots of fighting, there's lots of drama in this movie. And so then they get captured, and they're just trying to escape as quick as they can. They get on a boat. There's 2 boats, and, you know, the decoy boat gets destroyed, and then they kind of just row off into the middle of the ocean by themselves, Haddock and Tintin.
Oh,
which
poor Haddock.
Haddock without alcohol is turning to be not so good.
Oh, man, and he starts like... Yeah, it's just his hallucinations, and he's like, oh, I built you a fire. I thought you were kind of cold over there. In a boat? What are you doing? I have to say, watching this the second time around was a lot better than the first time. Like, the first time you see it, and you're just like, this is funny. This is really good. But the second time around, it was like, this is really funny. Like, there's a lot of these one-liners in there that are just hilarious.
Mm-hmm. So, how did they get the plane?
Well, while they're sitting there, they've tried to put out the fire, and now they're sitting on the top of it, and Haddock is just kind of moping. He's like, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to jump off. Are you listening at all? And he's like, no, but look, there's one of those Portuguese planes, you know, and he's like, oh, well, let's get it. And then it starts shooting at him. And then they ended up with, like, their one bullet, you know, because Tintin's amazing like this.
Of course.
He's able to shoot down the plane. And then he goes up to the plane that is now floating on the water, and takes his empty gun and he holds up the pilots, who also have guns.
Yes.
But Tintin obviously has too much courage and know-it-all to be taken down. So, okay, all to you, Tintin.
So, yeah, so this is still action-packed, lots of going on, rushing the plane. They fly the plane, and then it stops working, and then eventually they land in the desert.
Yeah.
So as the second they hit the desert, you start to realize, wow, there's been a lot of settings and different environments that we've been introduced to just in this, like, very short time, which I thought was really cool, because we're in Belgium, then we're at this cool manor, and then we're at sea, and now we're here in the desert. So I liked that personally.
Yeah.
But so this is really where, like, the main key factor happens with Haddock's hallucination.
Yeah.
The fact that he doesn't have alcohol kind of triggers. Apparently in his life, he's never not been inebriated. And so he is running dry, literally, and has these hallucinations that trigger kind of tales from his family history, you know, lost stories that only Haddocks know that have been passed down from generations, but for some reason he's forgotten. So he's transported, and he's turned into one of the old Haddock captains who's being attacked on his ship, you know, by this other pirate called Red Rackham. And so, you know, you're figuring out, what's happening and everything, and then the hallucination stops.
Like,
dang it, no! And Tintin's like, hey, no, what else do you remember? And he just doesn't remember, because just the hallucination ended. And so they kind of pass out in the desert, and they get discovered by, you know, some natives, not really natives, but locals who know how to travel the desert. So they take him, and he's in this room, and Snowy does something. He gives him alcohol, and it triggers another...
Snowy's also an alcoholic as well.
Yeah, so while they're there, they're kind of held hostage in this room, and Snowy somehow gets another drink in his hands, and it triggers the end of this hallucination, right? Yeah. And so I really like these hallucination scenes, because you get to go back in time, you get to see this, like, Pirate's Life for Me aspect, and then there's all these, like, classic things we talked about, like, you know, when there's drama on board a ship, like, of course something's going to happen with the gunpowder.
Yeah, the gunpowder room is always the first thing to go.
And the gunpowder is also, classic, not just animation, any movie. Somehow a trail of gunpowder is going to get, taken from the gunpowder, hall, upstairs, around a bunch of things, and then caught on fire. And so then there's this big scramble to put out the fire before it blows us all up and blows us to smithereens.
Hey,
so,
you have to have a timeline here.
Hey, it's great. So, I thought that was really funny. And so, Captain Haddock, the original, I guess, and Red are fighting and kind of talking about, show me what you have. And the boat does not blow up at this point. And then he shows him. So then, we discover that underneath this ship, there are 400 weight in gold, which is a lot of jewels. So I love me a good pirate story that just involves mounds and mounds of treasure. It's
Who
great.
doesn't?
It's great.
Who doesn't?
When I saw that, I was just like, ooh, yes.
Now we're talking.
Yes.
We never get tired of it.
Yeah. No, not at all. So we discover, okay, so this is the true thing they were looking for. But then we also find out what happened with, the ship is called the Unicorn. So that's why these model ships were also called unicorns, because we discovered there were 3 of them made. And inside each 3, because the Unicorn was blown up. And in the process of being blown up, Red cursed all of the Haddock descendants from here on out. And so Haddock escapes and, of course, passes the curse on from family member to family member.
That's one thing I like. How does Red have the power to curse a family name?
That never quite was understood. We're not sure if he's a wizard or a sorcerer or what.
Wow. Just by me saying, Morgan, you know what?
Hey, Chelsea, don't go there, okay?
How in the world is this gonna continue on?
Yeah, so we're just led to believe it, and so they discover, so we need to find these 3 scrolls that are hidden in the 3 masts of these unicorns. Sakharine has one, Tintin has one, but it was lost, right. And there's this other one in Bagar, which is this kind of Arab palace, or it's a city, and in it there's sort of this Arab aristocrat. Stupid aristocrats. It ruined that word for me. There's this. So then we discover that the 3rd ship is in Bagar, which is home to this Arab-like aristocrat who also happens to have this 3rd model ship, but in very, very expensive bulletproof glass.
Yeah.
And I liked how this resolved and how, it's just great. It's just another outrageous part of this movie that just works.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. So somehow this Milanese Nightingale comes to visit this aristocrat, and it's put on not only by Sakharine himself. He's the one who's put this all together, and we figure out very soon the reason she's here is so she can perform in this outdoor gazebo by the ocean where of course figures the ship just sits.
Of course.
And you cannot penetrate it, except there's only one thing.
Vibrations.
Her voice. And so she's singing, and she's hilarious. She has one quote. She's like, "Oh, it's my first visit to the 3rd world." It's like, oh, yeah, you uncultured swine. Yeah.
And my gosh. I love when they first see her, they're like, oh, that's his secret weapon, the Milanese Nightingale. And Haddock's in the back, ooh, what a dish.
Nice.
Oh, man. Actually, the character originally is actually a reoccurring character in the
really,
in the series, and she apparently has Haddock hates her to no end. She never gets his name right. He always calls him Paddock or something, just something or other. And the inspiration for her was actually taken from Herge's aunt, who apparently went around screeching, singing all the time.
Oh, nice.
And so apparently she wasn't a good singer. So in the show, it's it always shows that Haddock hates the voice and is like, ah.
Oh, because I didn't get that. It was only people affected were Snowy and Haddock. And I didn't understand why Haddock had such a problem with the singing. I was like, is it poisonous or why? It's just because he just hates her in general.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I love it.
He's like, I gotta get out. It's bleeding the ears. It's like, you're fine, Haddock. But she was okay. I've gotten really into classical music lately,
nice.
Opera type things, and that last note was impressive. I've tried to hit that note, and I'm like, I can't even squeak that. That's insane. Oh,
Awesome.
man. So I was really impressed. I've seen some YouTube videos of her and wasn't quite as
Not
impressed.
the Milanese Nightingale, you mean the lady.
The lady herself, yeah, the actual singer whose name is Kim Stengel. Yeah, so the videos on YouTube don't give her justice. Like, this gives her justice of like, yeah, you're really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, of course, we figure the glass breaks when she hits her high note, and figures Sakharine has a falcon, because all bad guys have some sort of pet bird.
Right, of course.
And so this falcon appears because the falcon swoops in, kind of takes the model ship, but doesn't really care, just breaks the staff, gets the thing, and flies away.
Right.
Just was really funny. It's like,
You're really trained. Good
yes.
job.
He was prepared for this. Like, he really put quite a sting operation,
yeah.
right? So, I mean, it's funny that we don't really see the repercussions of the fact that this very prominent model ship was broken, and they just move on. But,
right, yeah, and the fact that they, like, basically drown an entire city from...
True.
Like, we don't see the repercussions there. They just kind of hang out afterward. Like,
and, okay, so Haddock, he kind of gets taken, and he was holding Tintin's scroll,
yeah.
and it gets taken from him. And the way they do it is they hit him in the back of the head with a bottle. And can I just say, in my life, I never want to get hit in the back of the head with a bottle. That just looks like the most painful thing ever, because it shatters.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm thinking like brain damage or potential. I mean, obviously you're going to pass out. That is not a goal in life. I'm just letting you know.
Okay, I'll make sure that doesn't happen.
I just cringe. It's like that, and then like the thing from Mulan, like the teeth. Like, I never want my teeth to fall out by getting punched in the face. Maybe I'm watching too many animated films where these like ridiculously bizarre things happen.
Oh, yeah.
And these instill these fears inside me.
Nightmares of Morgan.
So, okay, speaking of the three ships, like, I have a conundrum about this, because there were three, and one was owned by Arabic royalty, essentially. The other was the original estate from the family. That makes sense.
Right.
And then the third, we're just supposed to believe, has been, like, chilling at Portobello Road for the past, decade with no takers. I don't know.
See, now that is why Antiques Roadshow is so popular. Everyone sits around thinking, I've got a lot of old junk in my attic. I wonder what that's worth. You never know.
It's just funny. It's like, this apparently is a big deal.
Yeah.
Everywhere except this one guy who's owned it for such a long time.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious to me. But yeah, you gotta start somewhere. They had to start with Tintin somehow getting a hold of it.
How else would he have gotten it? So, yeah.
He is not a thief, so he wouldn't have stolen.
Of course not.
But he does break into homes, so...
Which apparently isn't the same.
Yeah, he had no problem with it. So, okay, so then they kind of they're trying to chase this falcon. Like, so we definitely had a tangent there. But, so the falcon still has the scroll, and so Tintin goes on this, like, race through the city trying to find the falcon and get the scroll back, and it felt very much like a video game to me, where you have, like...
It's pretty in-depth.
Yeah. Lots of things happen.
A lot of jumping in from building to building and, like swinging from... lantern to lantern.
Yes, things that won't happen in real life but are so cool to see in a movie, or a video game, and so, at one point he's riding on a motorcycle, he's riding upstairs, and of course he has an awesome sidecar.
Of course.
Which I think is pretty cool. Again, showing that Tintin has no problem with vehicles in any way, shape, or form, especially from other countries with different designs. Hey.
It's all the same.
I did a report on this one. I did a story on this. So that kind of goes along with, I remember in like the 5th Harry Potter book, remember when Professor Umbridge, she's like, all you need is theory. It's like, as long as you have the theory, then you can execute it, which is not necessarily true, but in Tintin's case, of course.
Of course.
So,
it works out perfectly.
They end up not getting the scrolls.
But I will say one thing. I didn't believe the fact that the Falcon could fly so slow. Like, why he would be flying so slowly, like, through this whole thing. Because Falcons go, like, 200 miles an hour. I'm thinking, well, really? You can just, like, jump and, like, catch him? Like, I just don't buy that.
This wasn't a very, like, smart Falcon. He must have had the brain the size of a pea. Because, why don't you just fly into the sky where no one could reach you? Like, no, I'm going to swoop very close to the ground just to, tease him a bit.
Awesome. So after this, they're all sitting there and they've almost given up because Sakharine now has all the clues that he needs, and they're like, oh, dang it. Like, the Falcon got his way and actually won in the end. And they're just sitting there, and I will have to say that I think Haddock I think he should go into motivational speaking, because that was a really good little, like, speech he had there. It was, like, going through, I'm like, wow, thanks, Haddock. Those are all truisms. Don't give up. You're not a quitter.
So then we kind of have this final showdown at the docks. And, you know, they're in these big crane things, and Haddock and Sakharine are trying to kill each other, and Sakharine finds lots of joy in the fact that he finally can kill Haddock, you know, because he's hung on to him for quite a while. Yeah. But now that Haddock knows the truth about the descendants and, you know, all this curse and everything, now he feels okay killing him. And he's going to do it very brutally by slamming a crane into him. And, of course, he doesn't die. And
you can't kill him. He's got to have justice, and he's got to go to court and all these things. He can't just get hit over the head with a bottle and drowned.
No,
like he should have.
And like you think that there's going to be this big climactic ending, and maybe I don't know. Maybe they just kind of like the police come, and then he kind of surrenders, right? So I thought that was a bit. It was okay of an ending, but I felt maybe I've been Disney-ified, where I'm expecting someone to fall off a cliff and scream and just fall to their death. But no, he just falls off a little ledge and just kind of sits there and gets taken away. So then Haddock and Tintin, of course, I mean, the story isn't resolved quite yet. They have the 3 scrolls. Yay! You know, and you know, Sakharine did all the work, which he points out very clearly. Like, you know, it took a descendant of Red Rackham to get this all together and to... what's the word I'm thinking? To
solve this puzzle.
So they had these 3 clues, and so one thing that had been stressed throughout the whole thing is that only a descendant of the Haddock line could figure out the clue.
Right.
And so, I mean, we figure out, you put the 3 pieces of paper together, you look at them in the sunlight, and it gives coordinates. So in my mind, I'm thinking, coordinates to the boat.
Yeah.
Like, woohoo, like get your submarine, and let's go find some treasure. No, it's to the manor, which is kind of interesting. And this butler, who originally kind of had given Tintin clues at the beginning, which kind of made you wonder about his loyalty. Like, why is he helping him out? You know, but he welcomes them, and the butler says, "Oh, it's glad to, you know, finally have a Haddock own the manor and be able to serve you again."
I don't understand this butler. Like, is he just a slave tied to this lot? Because right after Sakharine gets off the boat, he's like, "Hello, sir. Did you enjoy your travels? I'm not paying you to do anything. You're not paying me at all." Like, what are you doing? You're just chilling at this, like, dilapidated old manor, like, waiting for but you're a good butler, so you're always there. Like, is that just...
He must have a life debt or something that he owes to the Haddock line, because, you know, even when he says to Haddock, like, "Oh, it's happy to be serving a Haddock again, and, you know, have a Haddock own this place." And Haddock is like, "No, like, I would never be able to afford this in my wildest dreams." So this guy, like, I'm not quite sure how much he knows, but he obviously knows there's treasure here.
Yeah.
You're going to get treasure, and you're going to buy the place back. You know, so it's just funny. I'm like, is this kind of...
But he didn't know about the second...
He did not know about the second cellar where, like, the final clue was hidden.
Right.
So I'm still a bit baffled about this guy.
Yeah, maybe he'll come around in the next one. Ooh. I didn't quite get into the series enough to know if he was actually in the rest of
Chelsea.
it. I'm sorry.
No, so really fun. And so, you know, of course, the Haddock who had grown up here knew that there was the second cellar. And so he goes into the cellar. And this manor has problem with, like, brick walls that have holes in it in certain spots. I mean, that's how Tintin gets in Ridgely through the wall. And then, of course, there's just a bunch of rubble in front of this hole. So we all crawl through it. And then there's this big globe that apparently a Haddock only will know how to open it. And he does. And he clicks somewhere in the Caribbean, Bahamas. And pops off. And there's a big... You know, it's
a giant hat.
Giant hat, and it's filled with gold, which I like that hat. Like, that's pretty awesome. If I were a captain nowadays, like, I don't care what's standard, what's norm.
What the style is now.
I'm going back 500 years and wearing a giant captain hat.
And I'll get you the hat. A really big one.
So, you know, he's all excited because that's a lot of jewels and a lot of gold. I mean, we don't, like, think about it because a lot of us don't deal in gold nowadays.
Right.
But, like, how much just even a globe filled with gold coins and jewels is actually worth?
It's worth a lot of money.
A lot of money. Enough to, like, make you set for life. So, you know, he's all happy and not necessarily thinking that's the treasure. But Tintin, we see him, he kind of is in the background. He reaches into the globe. And I begin to wonder, like, if his ethics and morals are beginning to sway here, because for a few minutes he doesn't say what's going, like, if he doesn't present Haddock like, "Hey, look what I found." And so I'm like, is Tintin really gonna keep this for himself, but of course not. He's very honorable, and they kind of split it, and it gives him another clue. And it just ends there. There's another clue to where the treasure is, and sets it up perfectly for a sequel, which makes me excited.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Very good movie. So let's rate it. Like I said before, the first time I watched it, it was good. And the second time I watched it, it was even better. And it just got better every time. So I'm going to give it 4 stars. Like, at first, I think I would have given it, like, 3.5. But the second time, I'm going to go for the 4.
Nice.
It's like, you know what? This is a good show. Lots of fun interactions, very fast-paced, and it's something that it was just like, that's a really funny line. I was laughing a lot through this whole thing.
So I'm going to rate it 4.5 stars. I remember when I first saw this, I thought this was the best animated film of 2011. Watching it again was just really fun and still exciting, even though I kind of knew what happened. Even my husband, who despises animated films, he started watching it with me. He didn't finish because he had to go to bed, but he texted me this morning. He was like, I really liked that Tintin. Let's finish it. And I'm like, what? Like, because sometimes he'll just kind of humor me and just watch it just for me and then leave and has no intention of finishing.
Right.
But yeah, the fact that like someone who really doesn't like animation actually liked it is a huge testament to me of how good this movie is.
Yeah.
I think the fact that Spielberg was involved and directed, who has directed Raiders of the Lost Ark and very, very classic kind of adventure movies like that, definitely played to why this came off so well on screen. Motion capture was fantastic.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just was blown away throughout the whole thing.
I love the way that they did it. They, made it cartoony enough so you're not kind of focused on that. But, I mean, everything just at certain points looked very real and was impressive to me.
Yeah.
So this is kind of one of the first, I guess Avatar really did it very, very well. But that was kind of a different medium, mixing kind of live action and motion capture. But this was just kind of all motion capture. And they did a great job telling the story. I was captivated the whole time. I loved how fast-paced it was, just like you. How we were moving and adventurous, and it was fun. And clue, adventure, pirates, gold. And left really excited for the sequel. And so it's been about a year and a few months since this one came out. And I've heard that, they're in development for the next one. So woohoo, I can't wait to see the next one. 4.5 stars, really good. I mean, I'm even interested in finding out more about Tintin, watching the cartoons, reading the books. So I mean, can't ask for more.
So it's time for the mailbag. Oh, I'm not sure if we'll keep that. So one of the reasons why we did this movie is because we got a nice little email from Esther. And Esther says, I recently stumbled across your website and have been enjoying the articles and listening to the podcasts. It is a pleasure to listen to you talking about the animated films because you speak with optimism, joy, and keep things upbeat.
This episode definitely is upbeat.
Yeah. Thanks, Esther. Have you seen Steven Spielberg's The Adventures of Tintin yet? And when you do, could you write an article or do a podcast on it? I grew up reading Herge's books and watching the animated series on Nickelodeon. The film blew me away, but I'd like to have your point of views on it. Keep up the great work, Rotoscopers.
Thanks, Esther. Normally when we get emails, we already have certain things in the lineup, and so we say, oh, thank you. We're going to put that on our to-do list. But this one, we kind of had scheduling problems, and so we said, hey, let's do it right now. Let's just do Tintin. So Chelsea and I got on it, and it was a good thing. It was just fun and exciting, so thanks for the suggestion. If anyone else has suggestions, please don't be afraid to email us and let us know. And we definitely get common ones that people suggest. For example, Little Mermaid was very common, so we finally did it, so we're excited. But if there are particular ones you want to see, let us know, and we'll add it to our list of requested ones. There are particular genres or filmmakers. We need to do some more Miyazaki films. I'm feeling we need to do a few more sequels.
Yeah.
And then some other studios. Despicable Me is inevitable soon, right?
That'll come up. It helps that these were on Netflix. I'll just be honest. If you want to be on Netflix, you can go to the rotoscopers.com/Netflix. Get a free month trial. Woohoo!
It's free.
It's free. It's awesome. The next letter in our mailbag comes from Kelsey, and she says, "Hey, Rotoscopers, I just wanted to say that I love your podcast. It's great to know that there are other animation addicts out there like me. It took me almost 3 weeks to listen to all your podcasts, but it was well worth it. Thank you for this great website and these fun podcasts. They always brighten my day." Kelsey. Wow.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kelsey. Like, wow, 3 weeks.
That's impressive.
Yeah. That's because, I mean, this is episode 33, and they're all at least an hour long.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. See, that's funny. My husband's best friend is named Rick, and he recently started listening to the podcast, and he told me when I saw him one time, and he was like, "I just wanted to let you know, like, I know he's listening to this, so whatever." I considered it a verbal mailbag. And so he said, like, "Oh, I started listening to it, and I love your podcast. Like, I love the energy you have, and it's so fun, and I listen to all the episodes at work," because he's allowed to, listen to music at work or different things to the iPod. And he's like, "I listen to all of them. I've listened to some of them twice." And so I was like, "Aw, Rick, that's so nice." Because, like, sometimes I'm like, do I want people in my real life to know how I am on the podcast?
Know, right?
It's like, sometimes I don't know if I, like, tell my real friends, like, listen to my show, because it's like, they're just going to be like, "Oh my gosh, she is such a geek.
She's crazy.
She's going crazy about these animated films." But so it's, I'm glad to know another real person in my real life.
I know.
It feels the same way. So thanks, Rick.
Oh, man. This is a great episode, actually. Well, thanks so much, guys. This has been awesome.
This has been a really fun episode, Chelsea.
I know, right?
Like, I don't know. Chelsea and Morgan episodes are really fun because they're a bit less structured, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's just Morgan and Chelsea geek out time. I do miss Mason because he's hilarious. Let's be honest.
Great, yeah.
He adds a lot to the podcast. So we miss you, Mason. But I had a great time doing the Adventures of Tintin, and I was glad I was able to watch it again and talk about it and talk about the news. I'm excited to see, like, the website is growing.
Yeah.
And there is starting to form, like, a little bit of a community on Twitter and on the site. If you've gone to the website, like, comment, because we wanted to create this a place where you can interact with other animation fans in the comments and kind of have your opinion heard. And so, me and Chelsea, we comment on there frequently, and some of the other writers. And so we just want to see everyone's opinion. So write on there and join the fun.
Yeah. If you want to find out more, you can head on over to www.therotoscopers.com. And if you have a specific episode you're looking for, you can just do / and then the number of the episode. We can also find us on Twitter, and that's the Rotoscopers at Twitter. You can find us on Tumblr, on Hypable, lots of fun places. And now also on animatedviews.com.
Woohoo!
Yay!
Thanks, Animated Views!
So if you want to find us individually, Morgan Stradling is on Twitter. I'm Chelsea Robson on Twitter, and you can also go to my website, which is technically my Facebook page, chelsearobson.com. Nice. Hey.
Gotta love the forum.
just go in for it. And you can also find Mason at thisanimatedlife.blogspot.com. So until next time, guys, we are the Rotoscopers. Go down and get some breakfast or something. But we gotta get back to work, okay?
I love you, Morgan.
I love you, Marissa. I knew that was coming.
I love you too, miss.
Talked a lot about Haddock.
Yeah. Haddock, you're never around when I need you.
Do not put this on the podcast.
What's up?
Hello.
Are we taking over the world yet?
We're recording right now, yes.
What did you say? Take over the world!